be their usual self.
Be conscious.
Exactly. It will change. You become conscious of the fact that you are there, and so will not behave normally. You will behave in a much way to suit what the thing that you want to project.
You'll be pretending.
Right.
Person you are observing can be pretending when you are
Exactly. Exactly. So, and what does that do to the data you collect?
It will not be reliable. It may not be reliable. The data collector may not be reliable when you are trying to do the test and retest. Or when you are using another method to measure the reliability and the validity of the data, it may not be the same.
Exactly.
Yes, sir.
You are very correct. Exactly. So when you have to find a way to ensure that the observation is different. Let me give you a good example. You know, in those days where they had a traveling teacher and inspectors of education, you know, they tell the school that the inspector is coming. And the inspector will now come and will be in this class. So the teacher already knows, the student knows that the inspector is coming and things. So the teacher and the student will be at their best, not at the normal state that they usually are. My late dad used to be an inspector of education, and he used to talk about these things. And so what he would do is he does not give advance notice that he's coming. So he just shows up in school and things, and maybe goes to the window and just sits and watch what is going on in class. And then he gets a better reading and able to now do a better guidance to the teacher on how best he should have approached certain things that he observed in the class. So those are the things. So one notable advantage of using self-reporting measure is the potential for response bias. Individuals may consistently or consciously or unconsciously distort their answers due to social desirability, memory inaccuracies, or misunderstanding of the questions. And so this can lead to data that does not accurately reflect actual behaviors, attitudes, or experiences, thereby affecting the validity of the assessments. That's one of the challenges we face in doing this national health survey, the National Demographic Health Survey. Because you're taking a questionnaire and going to sit with people and they see you come and they ask questions, they're not going to tell you everything. So that's the challenge of self-reporting. Yeah. So when you take your data, you collect your data, you look at the data and you try to say, okay, how best can I represent this data to be able to give me some categories or groupings and things that will be used to provide a result. You look at the data and you look at, okay, the ratio is different. So they're variables. So you're looking in terms of ratio variables. What are those things considered to be ratio variables? See, when you take things like height, for many people, there is the height will not be in the community and things will be different because you have somebody that is tall, somebody that is medium, somebody that is short, and things and so on. And in some cases, you cannot have zero height. And so you need to start from somewhere. And that's why you begin to categorize it into variables so you can use ratio to apply. So in effect, what I'm trying to say is that describing a ratio variable as an example of a ratio is the height. Now the ratio variable process, it processes all the characteristics of intervals, which are also variables. So the interval variables. So in other words, this could equal the meaningful difference between values, but they also have a true 0 point that signifies absence of the measured attributes. So you find that if there's some attributes that you can measure, but you can't just measure them or you can't factor or you determine their absence, or rather identify them. But if you put them in a variable ratio, I think you can cover that effectively. That's a major study on its own to determine, to apply ratio variables in there. If you take other examples like weight, age, income, or the number of children in a household, each can be measured on a scale with real zero and allow for statements like twice as much, half as many, because their true zero ratio variable permits the full range of mathematical operations, including multiplications and divisions. So you find that in demographic health survey, when they say women of childbearing age, you can tell me what range that is in your study in national data management system. Women of childbearing age. Where does it start and where does it end? Women of childbearing age starts at 15 in Nigeria. Yes.
Okay.
And it depends on the culture. Like in the north,
you don't, and that is why you factor that all those things. You don't bring in all those aspects, because in some culture is 21, in some culture is 8 or 9 or things. There's a difference between childbearing age and marriage.
Okay.
Age at marriage. So when you say in the north, let me first caution you very seriously about using that term in the north, because that is stigmatization right there. So rather than use the term in the north, it's always good to say in some cultures, in some areas, and not mention specifically the north, because that will take away from what you're saying. So take this very seriously. Never in an argument or in a presentation, never use the term north.
Thank you, sir. Noted.
Yes. So when you look at age range, the childbearing, women of childbearing age, in the NDHS, it starts from 15 and goes to, I think, 49 or so. So that is what the government captures as
Excuse me,
age.
sir. Excuse me, sir.
Yeah, go
When you are
ahead.
saying 40 minutes, sir, I want to ask a question. I'm not clear. Some women that are seeing their menopause by 45. Am I right?
Yes, but is it prevalent? That's what to ask. Some women have children at 60.
Yes.
Uh-huh. So you have to take an average and work with an average. And that's where ratio variable comes into play.
Thank you, sir.
So you cannot take every incident. And that's why it says it kind of uses a range. Like it says here, half as many, twice as much, you know. Like most times we say when people are in an argument, we'll say, oh, 90% of people do this. Well, hello, have you done the actual study and come up with a number that shows 90% of people do this? So before you throw out a percentage, be sure that you have the data to support it. You see? So but he can look at it in terms of a range and it covers you. You can say, from what I know, twice as many people do this. So that gives you ability to play around in a variable. Yeah, I was correct. I just did the Google. In Nigeria, women of childbearing age are generally defined as those between ages 15 and 49 years old. That's what the Nigeria uses in everything they do. And this is because when they look at the average age at which women start having children in Nigeria is 15. Now, that does not mean that at 14, somebody may not have a child. A girl might develop fast and have children even at 12. I mean, we've seen them raped at 12 and things. That is abnormal. That falls outside of the code.
Yes. Yes.
So you use the one that is known, that is normal, that falls within the average age is between that and 49. And above 49, people can also have children. But that's what it is. I had to try to Google that just to be sure. So now, the last one I want to talk about today, I know you have another meeting. The last one I want to talk about is something, we didn't mention it, but we talked about it in a different way. We didn't mention the word itself, but it is the Hawthorne effect. Hawthorne effect. Hawthorne is spelled Hawthorne. Hawthorne effect. So it's the same thing we had talked about earlier, but we kind of glossed over it when we talk about observing and people behaving differently because you are being observed. I went back to it to kind of get that word that is used for it, and that word is called the Hawthorne effect. And I would say the description of Hawthorne effect refers to the phenomenon in which individuals modify their behavior in response to being observed. or knowing that they are part of a study. This effect was first identified during a series of workplace studies at the Horton Work Factory in 1920s and 30s, where researchers discovered that workers' productivity increased simply because they were aware they were being studied, not necessarily due to an experimental change in their environment. So Horton effect highlights the importance of considering participants' awareness and observations as influential factors in research, reminding practitioners that the act of measurement itself can alter the very phenomenon being studied. So that's the Horton effect. When the act of measurement affects the phenomenon you're studying, that's Horton effect. And that is because the people respond more positively because of the presence of a researcher. And so when you're looking at child behavior or looking at parents and things, when you go visit a parent as a result of a child's behavior, you go visit them, they will automatically change their behaviors and everything towards that child because you are there. So that's the Horton effect. And so there's a need to factor that into your responses or your data collection and things. If not, you will have a different reading from what is actually the case. You know. So this is where I'll end the class today. You guys have a question?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Zade, I
for-
want to say thank you very much for your participation. You've always been out there making comments, giving examples and things and so on. And it is very, very good. So you make the class more lively. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. We appreciate.
Appreciate. God bless.
Bless you all. All right. Thanks. Have a good evening.
All right. Thank you, sir.